Hello, today I will be discussing Chapter 2 of Reading Pop Culture based on identities and Rhetorical Analysis, Chapter 10 Opportunities and Challenges Arising for the Rhetor. So, in Armstrong's An Argument from Being an Opposer, Armstrong goes on to explain their own life and how they were part of, say, two groups, of how one of their experiences being at a rave influenced them to be, oh, I could participate in both groups if I wanted to. I could dress up in one way and I could dress up the other way. I don't have to stick to just one. In that case, this is where a poser comes into play. A poser is somebody who pretends to be one person. They pretend not one person. My bad. They pretend to be someone who could fit into every group. They act like they belong in every group. However, in Armstrong's argument, they were saying that they're not trying to act as every group. They're embracing different qualities that each group provides. And that way, that helps build their own identity because they get to see different values that they may enjoy. In this connection to the Rhetorical Analysis, Chapter 10, in which it goes on to explain the challenges arising in the rhetor. The rhetor, in this case Armstrong, wants to prove that it's not wrong, or it's not wrong to act one way or another, because that's how you learn more about yourself. But because audiences are usually exposed that being a poser is bad. Being a poser means that you're not sticking to one group and that's you're not being true to yourself. But in reality, Armstrong's saying you are true to yourself because you get explore different things that you do really enjoy. You're not acting that you're enjoying it, you really are, but you just want to explore it in different instances. In Cepida's N-word is flourishing among Generation Hip Hop Latinos, why should we care now? Cepeda goes on to say the use of the N-word and how like they see it constantly in different Latino backgrounds such as Dominican Republicans. And then it could who can and can't unsee it, it's because to the point is saying like, oh, this group can use the N-word because they too were oppressed in a way, or they are dark-skinned, and like once you use it, you can't stop on using it. The thing is, for the audience, this is a challenge that the writer has to face, that N-word is very controversial, such as African Americans, or because that's the derogatory term that was used. But now people are using it in their songs, or especially not even from the actual, like it could be Afro Latinos too. They're using it in their music, they're using it in the way expressing themselves because that's who they identify with. They're not like, oh, they don't have to they don't have to fully be a part of that group, but they can be in a way, or they can be dark skinned, or they can have an oppression background as to who they were from their culture before. The thing is, that's what the author is trying to put into place, that it's not used as a derogatory term, but it's not, in reality they're using it to embrace it themselves as who they are as a person. In Jesus and the White America, Jesus goes on to say that people of color are spreading more around faster. It's in articles that it's not just pure white people that are in the nation. There's a mix of culture. There's a mix of culture within a culture, or even white with another culture. Basically the idea of the melting pot. And then the thing is, the question that arises, what determines whiteness? What makes you a white person? Is the question that was challenged in a way by Sue. And the thing is, there's true diversity in America, because it's not just diversity in your race, but like there's diversity in religion, there's diversity in culture, there's diversity in who you are as a person. So the challenge that the author faces and is trying to fight, the writer faces and is trying to fight against, is that here in the United States, it's not just pure white anymore. It's more like you have to accept that there's different cultures within the United States, and that's what you need to find appealing. In Gladwell's The Sport Taboo, one of the things that the author is mentioning is the stereotypes between an athletic person and their different races. Because there's always going to be people thinking like, oh, just because they're this race, they are gonna fail, or they have to succeed in this category of sports, when that's not the case. But the thing is, the challenge is that one is so accustomed to the stereotype already that it's hard to get that mindset out. So that's what that writer is trying to explain through, is that just because they may be of this reason, mean they have to follow along that stereotype. There's a variety of stereotypes too, and when it comes to sports, hundreds. But the thing is, one cannot just expect that out of everybody. Everybody is their own person. Is their own. Everybody has their own identity in a way. They have their own identity in who they are in sports. Just because they're expected to do this well in this sport doesn't mean they can't in another sport. Or if like they do bad in one sport that's meant to be for their sport, that's not the case. Not everybody is the same. And finally, in Boyd's impression management and network setting, um, they go on to say that identity, especially now for teens, is very hard to come across because some teens are so open on what they post on social media that could always be used as their identity when it's not truly them. So they have to what the author said, an invisible audience. Everybody sees your every moves. Thing is, it makes it much more harder for a teen to say to am really impressed when it comes to a job. They need to find a way to present themselves appropriately without really giving off a bad example, but with such things represented in the media, they don't know who they are, or it's harder to actually show who they are and not just the idea of what they've posted before. And the challenge that's arising from that in this case is making sure that the case for teens is that they do get an opportunity to show who they are and not just a person that has a online background in a like pejorative or meliorative way.